Warning: Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
What it do, family and friends? Welcome back to the Church of Black Power. If you're not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you can be notified whenever videos like this drop. Please make sure you're hitting that like and share button so we can beat up the algorithm. Make sure we get this message out to the ears that need to hear. And if you have not done so yet, please go to change.org, hit the link in the description to do so, and put your signature on the petition for reparations. And with that being said, family, today we're going to get into a topic that really would piss me off a lot of the times that I heard about it, because it's such a nonsensical stance to take. Okay. And we do know that one of the major issues that we deal with, especially as Black Americans, especially as Black people on the continent of America, is systemic racism. Now, everybody might not agree to that, but the people who wouldn't agree most likely aren't from this country. They're immigrants who immigrated to this country, and so they tend not to want to see all that negativity, in which we actually don't have a problem calling out. But the question at hand is basically, what's the bigger issue, white supremacy or is it class? And that was something that really got to me when looking into the third party. And one of the reasons why I had to stop voting third party, because I voted third party one time, that was for Jill Stein in 2016, and that was just a protest vote against Trump and against Hillary Clinton. But I digress. With that, I got to do some research, and I was able to come across a lot of these conversations where they're basically saying, well, white supremacy isn't the real issue. It's an issue, but it is not the issue. The issue is classism. And if all the poor Blacks and the poor whites and the poor Asians and the poor Hispanics get together, we can topple this class-based system of capitalism, and all this crap is whack. It's all nonsense. So I came across this video of a brother speaking about the same thing, and we're gonna play that video, and then I'm gonna come back with my commentary on it. But just know that the commentary, spoiler, it's white supremacy. But let's get into it, family. What the hell? Of course it does. My fault, family. Let me see here. All right, there we go. Was having a bit of technical difficulties. Like I said, it's always expected when you're in a newer studio and you share the studio with other people. People come in and change stuff around, mess things up, but it is what it is. Let's get into it, family.
As a Black person, you have to be wary about white leftists saying things like, there's no war but class war. We have to realize as Black people that the major way that white people are oppressed is through class conflict. That's why they focus on that. But ask yourself, if we win the class war, will we still have to deal with white supremacy? And the answer is yes. And white people don't see this as a problem. The reason they don't see white supremacy as big of a problem is because they benefit from white supremacy. Just look at history. White supremacy has gotten white people control of North America. It's gotten them some control of South America. It's gotten them control of Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, South Africa. Why do we believe as Black people that white people will be our allies against a system that financially benefits them and has gained them global hegemonic status. We have to assume that white people will not be our allies in the struggle against white supremacy. No war but class war is a red flag. As a black person, you have to be wary about white lip.
All right, family. So we're going to break it down and go piece by piece of what he's saying. And then, yeah, let's get into it.
As a black person, you have to be wary about white leftists saying things like, there's no war but class war. We have...
And he's absolutely right on that, because most of the time when you have people coming to you trying to tell you that white supremacy isn't the issue, it's class, it's coming from the left. It's coming from the left. And to be honest with you, it's a nonsensical argument. Because when you say the issue is class, when you look at the overall of just how America works, the people who's always at the bottom caste is black Americans. You see, there were no laws created to specifically go after poor white people. As a matter of fact, there's been laws to the contrary that benefited poor white people, which y'all think the Homestead Act was. What you think welfare actually was. Welfare didn't come along until they started seeing all these poor white people in shanty towns. And then they say, you know what? They saw the program that the Black Panthers was doing up in Oakland with the food programs and things like that. And they said, we need something like that. And that's when they came with the welfare program. But to contrary belief, because most people will have you believe that they did that because black women needed help and all this other stuff, that was not the case. They only implemented that program because white people needed help. And that's a cold, stone cold fact. And then they hoarded those same services over black women's head and say, well, if you don't do what we say, you can't get these services. You can't get fair housing. You can't get food stamps. You can't get any of these things if your man is in the house. But those same rules was not stipulated for the white woman. Those same rules aren't stipulated for the Hispanic woman who can come here illegally with her whole damn family, and they all can go down to the county building and get county assistance. Government assistance, if you prefer to call it that. So when he said you can't be fooled, you got to look out, see it as a red flag, my ears immediately perk up. Immediately perk up like the basset hound I am, listening like, what the hell is going on? Whenever someone says it's not a racist issue, it's not a white supremacist issue, it is a issue of class. No, now you got to go back through the books. You got to go back through the policies of America and show me where class overpowered white supremacy. Because from what we done saw, we was in a great place. In many places throughout history, in different time frames, we was building cities, we was inventing things, we was doing all that you would expect of a person who builds opportunity, who creates opportunities. We was doing it all. We had our own busing lines, our own airports, banks, grocery stores. When we were building wealth, and no other group who built wealth had this issue, but when the foundational black Americans, the descendant of American freedmen, was building wealth, they implemented every policy on the books in order to make sure they can break up that wealth. We're the only people on this continent that's been bombed by the American government in which we are citizens to. And it doesn't matter what class of black you're in. Look at the Diddy situation. This man is a billionaire. And they're stonewalling this man. Yes, I'm going to say stonewalling this man because they have no proper evidence of anything. They have no witnesses. They opened the floor for people to come and say that they're actually victims. He was arrested by himself, and that's not how RICO charges go. In a RICO case, you arrest everybody at one time so that no one can get rid of evidence. So they hit everybody at one time. Read up on the RICO charges. This is very easy, accessible knowledge. But when they want you out of there, when they want to attack you, look at what happened with Jonathan Majors. Was that a class problem? This man was running away from a woman that was physically trying to harm him, and he got charged. Is that a class problem? And some people might say, well, the DA was a black dude. That does not matter. That does not matter. It was still a matter of white supremacy. The police officers were not black, they were white. And they tried to switch up the whole situation once they got to the man's house. And he's the one that called the police. They brought up text messages that was so old, had nothing to do with the case, in order to try to pin something on him, which wasn't an admission of guilt or an admission of anything happening to her physically. It sounded like to me, going through those text messages, it was all about a man who was going through some mental health issues, and he's seeing how this woman is very counter to what his goals are. And he's trying to explain to this woman what he needs in his life in order to keep his sanity, to keep her, and to keep his business going. And she couldn't take it. And the vindictive white supremacist sat there because he didn't want to be with her, filed a false claim. That's not a class issue. That was a race issue. And it was a white supremacist issue. Look at Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was outside the parameters of any of the witnesses. They said, you know what? We're going to change the laws to now say, no matter how long ago it was, you can come forward. Jeffrey Epstein was given a sweetheart deal where he had a year in jail, where he was able to leave his prison cell and go to his office every day. And the days that he didn't leave his prison cell, they were bringing women into his cell for him. That's white supremacy. That's white, and I say so. That's not a class issue. Because I'm pretty sure Diddy ain't in there having them bring him women and baby oil. Let's continue, family.
We have to realize as black people that the major way that white people are oppressed is through class conflict.
I would have to disagree with my brother there. White people aren't oppressed. White people aren't oppressed. Who is oppressing white people when white people are the main oppressors? If white supremacy is the law of the land, who would be oppressing white people? Even people who are in a lower class than a rich black man has more power in this country than the man with $1 billion because he's black. Diddy was a billionaire. Kanye was a billionaire. And all that got taken away in one swap. One clean swipe, excuse me. One clean swipe. Everything's taken away from Kanye. One clean swipe. The billions that so-called Diddy had are gone. And this is another thing that I tell people too. Do not get hung up on these titles of billionaires and millionaires and things like that. Someone can be a billionaire on paper but not have a dollar to his name. Someone could be a billionaire and then all of a sudden the billions disappear, because if you get it through them, guess what? They can take it back, and they have no problem doing so, by hook or by crook. And Tariq Nasheed talks about this a lot as well. He speaks about the poorest white dude having $1 billion worth of defense and equity in America. And what he means by that is that white supremacy was spent up to $1 billion on these race soldiers. When they do something to harm black people, when they do whatever the situation is, they do. White supremacy will protect them up until it reached that $1 billion cost. So he calls it, Tariq being he calls it the Kyle Rittenhouse effect. And we've seen this, where all of a sudden someone goes and do a mass unaliving somewhere of black folk. Then all of a sudden a GoFundMe goes up, and then it gets millions of dollars. All of a sudden the person can get a good defense. Millions of dollars. But I want to remind you all of the young sister that was protecting herself against this race soldier bully, and she beat the brakes off of her. And once you're fighting, you're fighting. So, she slammed her head down, and when she slammed her head down and whatnot, she got arrested when she was the one defending herself. And she was getting jumped because someone jumped in. And once that happened, that's when all bets were off. She started going wild, as she should. But when she was arrested and we set up a GoFundMe for her, GoFundMe shut it down. This is white supremacy. And we're not just running around here blowing smoke up everybody's ass when we're talking about it. And white folks, like he said, will not call out white supremacy because they benefit from the system of white supremacy. They benefit from capitalism. And most of these immigrants that come over here talking about, well, we got to tear down the capitalist system, and we got to go out after all the capitalists and all this other nonsense. See, what a lot of people love to run around saying that nonsense, they're not being honest at all, because they came here to partake in the capitalist system, the system that was built off the foundational black Americans. This is a fact. People love to say we came here for better opportunities that wouldn't have been built if black Americans didn't go through the time that we went through here, and it wouldn't be possible for anyone else if black Americans didn't fight from the top tier to the back tier for equal rights across the board. You wouldn't have any Dominicans coming over. You wouldn't have any Puerto Ricans. You wouldn't have any Africans. You wouldn't have any of that. Let's continue, family.
That's why they focus on that. But ask yourself, if we win the class war, will we still have to deal with white supremacy?
Great question. And I believe they focus on it because it is a misnomer. It's a bad faith argument. They know they cannot, like Sister Frances Cress Wilson said, white supremacists play stupid, and they expect you to play stupid right along with them. And when you bring up white supremacy, they try to say it doesn't exist. But with the issues within America, you have to now explain the system of America. So instead of it being a system of white supremacy, they have to throw some nonsense out like, no, it's a capitalist system and the whole thing is all about class. When we know that that is far from the truth.
And the answer is yes. And white people don't see this as a problem. The reason they don't see white supremacy as big of a problem is because they benefit from white supremacy. Just look at history. White supremacy has gotten white people control of North America. It's gotten them some control of South America. It's gotten them control of Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, South Africa. Why do we believe as black people that white people will be our allies?
That's another great question. Why do black people believe that white people will become their allies when the history is shown different? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not painting everybody with a broad brush. I have some white friends, but they know where I stand and I know where they stand. And to be honest with you, I done changed a lot of people's minds when it came down to this reparations thing, especially white people, because I make it very clear who is for, who is not for. I actually give them the bill that I wrote. One person told me it changed her mind because it was the most detailed, documented bill she's ever read that made sense. See, a lot of bills you read really doesn't make sense. My bill makes sense because it gives you precedent, and then it also gives you reason after reason, and then it gives solution for those reasons. But I've changed a lot of white folks' mind, but I'm not naive. I don't believe that the white man or the white woman overall is an ally to the black man in America. Never have been. But the truth of the matter is, this election, last election, and in 2016 has shown us and shown the world white women will do what's best for her family. White men would do what's best for his family. And it seems never to be in line with what's best for black Americans in our families. Let that sink in. With all the nonsense that you're seeing with all these dang Democrats, like really crashing out due to their loss. A lot of women running around here talking about Trump is this, Trump is that, Trump is this, Trump is that. But majority white women voted for him. Overall, out of all women, he got the most votes for white women. So when will black women get it in their heads, not foundational black Americans, because we didn't already got it. We're now speaking to the immigrant blacks. When are immigrant blacks going to get it in their head that they're not there to help them either? See, when you get your feelings hurt, then you want to run around here crying, screaming, all online talking about he cheated. But when they're telling you who they are, right in their face, right in your face. Maya Angelou said it best. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. See, foundational black Americans have believed who these people were for a long time. We fought who these people are for a long time. And we continue the good fight to this day. And we're the only black group of people around the world that's actively fighting white supremacy across the board. Tell me when I'm telling lies. We're the only black group in the world that's actively and continues to actively fight white supremacists in all its forms. Shout out to the new black media. Let's continue.
Against a system that financially benefits them and has gained them global hegemonic status. We have to assume that white people will not be our allies in the struggle against white supremacy. No war but class war is a red flag.
No war but class war is a red flag. And family, we got to start making sure people understand that we don't give a damn about no class war. We're talking about the war against white supremacy, which has a hand in every area of government, in every area of politics, in every area of law enforcement. Class has nothing to do with any of those things. There are not policies targeting poor white people in the government at all. There are not policies targeting poor white people in law enforcement at all. They're not one. It doesn't affect politics when it comes to poor white people. They don't. It doesn't affect them at all. It doesn't target them, nothing. When it comes to the black Americans, the foundational black Americans, the American freemen, and the descendants of, that is a pure hatred. It is a pure hatred. Because we can pull policies directly from the government that's still on the books to this day. Here's something that I want to put on people's head. The Dred Scott case was never overturned. They like to say, the 14th Amendment removed that, but it has been used after the 14th Amendment was implemented. So the Dred Scott case has still never been overturned. They used to bury our cities underwater because we were black, not because we were poor. It's quite to the contrary. It was because those black cities were thriving and doing better than those white cities. So family, when people come to you with this ninny nonsense, that's exactly what it is. It's ninny nonsense. And it usually comes from tethers who say that type of stuff. But this brother was on point when he said, it's not about class. Because if we get rid of class, white supremacy would still be looking us dead in the eye. So they're trying to give you all these things to fight except for the main boss. You need to go through the underlings first, they're trying to make us do. We like, hell no, we going straight for the boss. The underlings will fall by the wayside if we cut off the head, the tail of flounder. The family, with that being said, if you're not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever videos like this drop. Please make sure you're hitting that like and share button so we can beat up the algorithm. Make sure we get this message out to the ears that need to hear it. If you have not done so yet, please make sure you hit that link in the description. Go to change.org and put your signature on the petition for reparations. Because here's the thing. That is one of the reasons why they don't want to give us reparations, because we're going to use that money to build more wealth, to stimulate the economy, and to fight white supremacy in all its forms. So don't let them confuse you. Neely Fuller Jr. said, if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it operates, then everything that you think that you know will only confuse you. And this is why we're seeing a lot of confusion out here in this world. But with that being said, the doors of the church are now closed. Peace, family.